Okay, we're live.
Yes, we are alive. What should we do now? So, well, we have quite a few people here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the I don't know which number of
25th.
25th.
So officially more than 2 years now.
Prismic Meetup.
Yes.
Nice. It's hard to keep up every time. But anyway, it's a lot of joy to be here because this is the moment that we connect with, people that, our users, our people, and that's really cool. Today there is a special topic that I love. I mean, I learned, if you received the email, that we're going to talk about branding and visual branding. And before, I used to have a different concept of it. It was like, it sounds like this thing that is unknown, or like, I don't know, this maybe sometimes feels cheesy, or like, oh yeah, okay, brand. And often agencies also invoice a lot for doing the branding, and they feel like they are selling us some stuff that we don't understand, and then they tell us this is a big price. And I thought it's a lot about the design or the content, but actually it's very strategic.
Yeah, there's a method.
And there's a method, and it's very strategic, and you need to understand so many things to be able to deliver to the brand. And that's the thing that I was missing. So that was very important learning for me. And we got it by talking to the first discussion that we had, like a profound
Paul
discussion.
From
It's
Typeform?
Paul from Typeform. And it was really interesting. So I love this topic. I'm very happy to be here. And today we have a special guest as well that we will talk about. Who will talk about this? You probably saw it in the email. But before everything, we are joining here today from Paris, me and Nuha.
I'm reminding you how I'm
your name, yes.
in case
I
it's
remember
been
now.
like 4 years that we work together. Sorry.
But I would like to know in the chat, where are you joining us from? There are two goals for that. First, I really like to see where everyone is joining us from, because I'm very proud about the fact that Prismic is actually global and international. We have users and employees from all around the world.
That's true. Yeah.
And the other goal is to get your
Energy
warm up.
levels?
No, to get
okay.
you a little bit, a little bit of warm up to kind of reach to your keyboard, because I really would like your questions. The best thing here is that we make the content out of your comments and questions. This is the difference between a video and a live, is that you can get the content that you care about. So give us questions. It doesn't matter how obvious it seems maybe, or how silly or how basic the question is. Actually, the best questions are the basic questions.
Yeah.
Because they get us to kind of challenge the basics. But first of all, let's get things warmed up, and tell us, please, where you are joining us from.
So lots of people from Berlin.
Okay, there's Berlin. We have quite a few employees that are, in Berlin now in Prismic. There's Toronto. We have also people that come. I guess didn't Sarah live in Toronto or something? I don't know. But anyway, we have
3 Canadians.
Porto. Yeah,
For
we have 3 Canadians.
Toronto comes a lot, but I don't know who comes from Toronto.
Ottawa. Raphael is from Ottawa, joining us from Ottawa.
Nice.
Of course, Grace from Texas. We know Grace, you're from, but thank you for saying it. And then what else? What do you see else?
There's also Justin from Ottawa, also.
Okay, so 2 people from Ottawa.
Yeah.
Okay. Oxford. Jan is from Oxford. We have Joanna from Lisbon. Lisbon is a good city, I hear.
Such a great city.
Yeah, you've visited?
Yeah.
I've never been there before.
It's a beautiful one.
So Portugal, and then
really lots of people from Canada today.
That's good. We're
That's
popular
nice.
in Canada.
We're popular in Canada.
Maybe that's because we have 3 employees. No.
Yeah. No, it's not them. So.
So yeah, that's cool. And then the Netherlands. I really like the Netherlands. Not in winter. There's so much wind in there. I know how you guys do in the Netherlands with so much wind.
Right.
I went once in the winter. Oh man, you really have to go to have good
It's
clothes.
also because you come from Syria, so you're not used to.
Yeah,
that,
I'm not
but
used to so much
yes.
cold wind. But I love how the city looks like. Like it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
We have LA
Oh.
as well. No, a lot of different places in the world.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
that's cool. That's very motivating. We have Renaud, who was supposed to join us actually in the actual.
Yes, it's
meetup.
it's the face of Renaud on the thumbnail of the meetup,
Yeah.
but he got
What
sick.
happened? He got sick. Yeah. So he had to stay home.
Yes,
But that was a good opportunity to have you
I'm happy to be here.
there. So that's cool.
That's cool.
Let's see. So the second question I had. Oh, Cuba. Oh, is that true? Like Francesco, is it real that you're in Cuba? That's special.
It's like you dream
That's
of
unique.
going to Cuba.
I love Cuba. I don't know. Like, the image that I see in movies and stuff about Cuba is nice. I mean, it's very authentic. It's very nice. We
Cool.
have someone in Cuba.
Nice. You had a second
And-
question.
Oh, Milan. Milan is good. So yeah, I had a second question. You had a second question.
Yes.
Actually. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I love brands, and I was wondering. So this is like a very large question, but I was wondering if you guys have a favorite brand. Like when you think of it, everything that they do, and every time they communicate, they inspire like something unique about themselves. Sadek has one brand that he talks a lot about, that I know he
Well,
always
it's-
takes as an example.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll let him start with it, but I'm very interested in knowing for anything. It can be consumer products or services or like SaaS products. If there's like one company, one brand that really stands out for you.
Yeah. Like, what is your favorite brand in the way that they
Yeah.
they talk about their brand, they visually represented in the design. What is it? So I will sound very cliche, but
Mhm.
I'm so much in love with what Apple does. There is this kind of inaccessible simplicity in there, really inaccessible. And I really think that who someone says is the simplicity is the what is it? So like everything like it's some kind of complexity that gets aligned or something. I don't remember the phrase, but actually that's what makes it inaccessible. Simplicity is not about making something like easy or something. Simplicity is when you have like many aspects. Like imagine you're exploring the brand and all of that, and everyone wants to put so many things into it, and then when you can pack all of that in a simple story, oh, this is really powerful. You can see it actually in Amazon, for instance.
Mhm.
That little smile of
Mhm.
opening a box, right? Opening a box and having a smile. It presents their customer service, right? And I feel this is so powerful. It says so much about the company in one very little, very simple drawing. So I fall in love with this kind of simplicity
Mhm.
because it's very few, but it tells so much, right? So that's why I love. But everyone knows about this, and I guess a lot of people appreciate their value. But they still, for me, the basics, right?
Mm.
Of course, you have Nike is the same kind of level of simplicity.
That's
So, but they are very I mean, it's very hard to produce this kind of simplicity. But we're going to ask our guests about these
Yeah.
kind of things as well.
Yeah.
So, what are your? Do you have? Okay, there are a few questions. Sorry, for a few answers there.
Mhm.
So we have Marta. She talks about MailChimp. Yeah, I love MailChimp. MailChimp has a very unique and communicating brand, right?
Yeah.
It's about automation, and you have like this kind of
It's very playful.
monkey or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, now you can automate mailing, and it's like this monkey communicates that,
Yeah.
and it's playful and all. Yeah. And of course, Apple. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, thank you, Andre. Always you complete me. So this is simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. This is what I wanted to say. I didn't have the words. Thank you very much for helping me. Apple, Nike, Jordan, Vercel. They have a very very unique and brand that black and white, very developer
Mm.
focused. Yeah, I understand. What else? Yeah, Amazon. Is talking about. Yeah, Amazon has a great logo design. Yeah, I mean, but then the website. I guess people
Mm.
don't like the design that Amazon puts in the website, but they're more into practical stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's what their brand is trying to communicate.
There's Tim
It's like,
Benix in the chat. It's been
oh,
one
Tim.
step
Hey,
into to
Tim. It's been a long time. Thank you for joining us. I don't know where you're joining us from.
South of France, I think, Tim, no?
Not the Netherlands.
He's from the Netherlands, but I think he
But it's
recently
south
moved
of
to
France.
the
He
south
told
of
us
France.
this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so these are all great brands. What do you want to do next?
Maybe we can talk about the outline for today, and then we can welcome our guests.
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Cool. So,
Sorry, we have Patagonia as well. Is it a good brand? Do you like it?
yes,
Patagonia? Yeah.
great brand.
So what does it talk to you? What does it tell you, Patagonia? What
Patagonia, it's a brand that protects our environment, that is for the earth lovers, you know.
yeah, this is what it
Yes.
communicates?
Yes.
It feels like this.
And
when you
high
look at the
quality stuff that you will keep for a long time. It's like the anti-fast fashion kind of brand. It's
logo. Okay.
It's really great. Like, yeah, you feel good wearing their products, and like just even buying them, you feel good when you buy them. So there was like a big news recently when the CEO of Patagonia decided to, like, how do you say, legate Patagonia to Earth, or to, like, I think in that case associations. I'm not super sure like how it happened, but it's not like.
But still,
It's
like
like
the
yeah.
same kind of brand.
Yeah.
Cool. So you wanted to go through the
outline.
The
Yes.
outline, yeah.
So today we'll start the meetup with a discussion on branding, specifically how to approach branding to be sure that the brand that you create will really resonate with your target audience, and like the method to create an efficient or like a resonating, a memorable brand, and how then that from this branding work that you do, you can like evolve it into a website that will be extremely efficient, and that also how can you make sure that not only at the release of the website but throughout the different iterations you keep this strong brand. So this will be the discussion for today, and we'll be with
how
Rug.
can you deliver into a website and the tooling that will help you always
The system
communicate
you
the
can put
brand?
in place,
Yes,
yeah.
the system that you put in place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then
we have Rug, and
Rug from How&How. It's a great agency that works on great projects. I'm very excited.
great brands. Yeah, I love the work they did, and I'm very happy to be here with him.
And then I will leave, and Lucie from the developer experience team will join to do two things. So she will demo two new features that were released for developers recently on SliceMachine version 0.5.1. So one is the ability to sync changes on SliceMachine, and the second is the new TypeScript support. So that will be Lucie's part. And then it was Next.js Conf yesterday, and we had two people from our DevX team also joining. So they recorded a little video for you to see the insights of the conference. So you also will also play that like live reporters from the Next.js Conf for you at the end of the meetup.
That's really cool. And so the first part is about branding and brand and methods of doing the brand. I would like to ask also people in the chat. What is your role in your team? Are you a developer? Are you a marketing person? Are you a content person? I guess everyone can be interested by the brand. And you see there is a lot of logic in there. It's not only about design or communication. It's about a lot of other things. So I guess it's interesting for everyone.
Yeah.
But it will be good to understand, like, what's your role? Are you a developer? Are you a marketing person?
Yeah, so we can address it
strategist?
from the right
So
way.
we can address it from different. And don't
Perspective.
forget, please, ask us questions. This is what will guide us through our content. It's up to you.
Cool. So should we welcome our guests?
I think this is the moment.
Okay. Studio, can you bring in Rug? Hey, Rug.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Where are you at the moment? Tell everyone.
I'm actually in San Jose at the moment because I'm attending the climate tech conference called Verge. I've been on a bit of a North American tour. I've just come from San Francisco from the TechCrunch conference.
Nice.
Now I'm in San Jose, and then I'm heading down to LA after this.
Wow. Okay. Busy schedule. So thanks a lot for being with us today.
Okay.
How was TechCrunch?
Yeah, really interesting. It's always absolutely fascinating to see what's going on and the new kind of startups in the scene. and the kinds of solutions that are out there for problems that you didn't even know existed. It's fascinating.
Cool.
So if you have like one sentence to describe what you saw there, what will be that sentence? Can you think of it in a few words that will describe what you saw there?
Like ultra niched solutions by really interesting and intelligent people.
Cool. All right. That sounds interesting. Maybe we should go there.
Yes. Well, Rog actually sent me an email about that, but it wasn't planned that I go. But I would love to go to TechCrunch Disrupts once. It looks great.
So, Rog, just to tell you, we have people, different backgrounds there. We see in the chat, we have head of brand design team, Marta is, and we have SEO manager, Vanessa is SEO manager. We have Hannah, who is marketing, and we have Fred, who's co-founder. Co-founder. So we have different profiles. I guess more people will tell us about who they are. It will be good to
It's already
know.
great context. Yeah. Cool. So let me introduce Rog. So
yes,
Rog
go ahead.
is the CEO and founder of an agency called How&How. It's an agency that is specialized in doing branding work for scale-ups. So my understanding is like companies that already achieved some level of growth. They understand, they can at least have a better understanding of their positioning and like who their target audience if they have they have like a kind of go-to-market strategy and understanding of who they are for. And these companies, you tell me, Rock, if I'm doing a good job here, but like you work with them on like defining or specifying their brand. And we talked a little bit before this meetup about finding a simple concept, like a core brand idea that you want to base everything on, and then also helping them with like embodying this brand on a website, like a marketing website that is very efficient for them. What I also read about you, that you worked in e-commerce before and in marketing also for the BBC. So I guess just in general, a very great marketing and brand background. So I'm very excited about having you here. We met because you worked on the Veriff website, which is built with Prismic and Next.js, and like it's a great example of this like scale up, like unicorn Estonian company. That's ourselves. We also we're super proud of having as a client. So this like branding work that you've done for them, it's very interesting, and it's going to be like we're going to base a lot of the discussion on the example of Veriff here. This looks like a great case study kind of to look at.
And I have so many questions for you, but I will not be able to give you all my questions. But the first I'm breaking whatever agenda you're having, but I do it every single time.
Go ahead.
I have my first two questions, and I go by two. So the first one is, what got you into brand and branding? What happened that made you think, okay, I like this, or I would like to invest more time into this? That's the first question. The second question, what are the misconceptions about branding? Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess as an agency, when we first started the agency, we set it up as a design agency, but very quickly niched into branding work because I set the company up with my wife. She's our creative director, so she's the creative lead on all the projects that we do. And I come from, as you mentioned, a more kind of marketing background. Kat and I ran an e-commerce business together. And originally, back in the day, I actually studied electronic engineering as well. And brand I see as the kind of marriage between the practical, the really, really kind of functional. It has to be very strategic, it has a purpose, a job to do. But also it needs to be very creative, very compelling, very unique and interesting on the creative side. And branding really is the kind of meeting of those two worlds. And it's really because I run the company with my wife, and we are the literal literal marriage of those two worlds together, which meant that we very quickly niched into branding because we realized that it was where our kind of forte was. And it made a lot of sense for us in the brand work we do. With brand work, it needs to be it needs to be very carefully considered because it's going to be around for a long time. Ideally, you want a brand to be around, forever. If you created a great one, then it might evolve and change over time. But when you go for a rebrand, you're thinking, okay, this could be a 5-year, 10-year, lifetime long actual piece of creative. So it needs to be really kind of carefully considered and carefully crafted. And a lot of attention to detail as well, and that speaks to a lot of our traits. Both myself and my wife, we kind of struggle to do any work without putting our kind of utmost into it, and really focusing on the quality and the detail and the craft, really. And brands are a really good representation of that.
Clear. That's very clear.
Second question as well, didn't you? The common misconceptions of branding. Which is like you were saying before, that I guess misconceptions that you might have had as well before diving into brand, which is that it's just a piece of design work. Branding is not design, really. Design is one part of brand. It's one of the manifestations of brand, but branding is actually about feeling. You're creating a feeling. You're creating an idea and a feeling, which is very intangible. But the design is only giving body to that intangibility. It's actually realizing it in the real world. But a brand is like a person. A person looks a certain way, but just from looking at someone, you're not going to be able to tell much about them, apart from maybe the clothes they wear might tell you a little bit about them. And it's only when you start speaking with them and you start knowing them and they behave in a certain way, that's when you really understand someone. And in the same way, when we create a brand, the visual representation is actually the surface level, and it's what everything else that lies underneath that you discover through the way that company operates, the way they speak, the way they behave, the actions they take are just as important in brand.
Yeah, and the team has just put some on overlay. Something that I saw in your website is part of the brand work that you do starts actually with more of a strategy part of understanding, researching and understanding why people connect with your brand, and the actual visual part of it is just a result of that. It's just a way to surface that better to the target audience. So I really feel that that's super interesting, and to be completely transparent, at Prismic, we're also doing a brand work these days, and it's actually one of the hardest part that we have to do, because it's not just about the visual part, it's about defining specifically this core brand idea that we care about, and there's a lot of
I will go in anyway to dig deeper into the method and all. I have a starter question from Henry Hazel Eyes. As the agency following a rebranding project, do you only work on the strategy and guidelines, or do you also take care of the implementation and adoption of these guidelines to all touch points? Very good question, I think. From your point of view. Now, maybe there are different agencies that do different things, and if that's the case, then please tell us about it. So tell us what you think and tell us what you see in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. As an agency, we specialize in the rebranding kind of process, but for many of our clients, we then become their retained brand and digital agency. And so the brands we create, we realize into headless CMS websites, which we'll be talking about a bit later. But also we create things like presentation templates, social media kits, even print and merch stuff as well. So it really depends what the company needs and how sophisticated their own in-house team is. So some companies that have a large design team that can hand over the brand and the brand guidelines, and they're just away. And then for other companies, we are actually their design team, and they don't have any in-house designers at all. So yeah, we do a bit of both, and it really depends from client to client.
Now we were talking about this with Nuha, I guess 2 days ago or something, and we were saying what I liked about your agency is that, understanding what the story or what the brand is very important, but then you need the company to start talking that voice and start expressing itself from that voice, right? Which means that you need to give them the tooling that helps them to do that, because you can tell them, okay, these are the slides, this is what it is, but what does it mean, and how, and the brand is communicated. So it happens through time. So like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of constantly communicating with that voice until people say, okay, this is the brand, and then just start communicating about it. And I like that you don't only give the idea or the conclusion, but you give them the tools that will help them communicate that.
Yeah, like a brand system as much as the website
brand
and digital system.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So it comprises two parts really on the brand when we deliver it. It's the visual side, which is the visual identity, but then there's also the verbal identity, and that goes into tone of voice and messaging, and that's where a lot of power comes from brand, and a lot of the time the bit that gets neglected is the actual writing. But if you think about it, there's the brands that people were mentioning before, like MailChimp. A lot of their personality comes through in their copywriting, because the chimp talks to you and he's like, "Hey, high fives," sent your campaign and things like that, and that's all part of the brand and would be written up in a guideline as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So to that question, what is your favorite brand? What is a brand that you really like, other than the work that you did?
Yeah, well, we were speaking about this earlier, and the best examples, I think, when we look to the kind of the B2C kind of world, there's a brand that I love called Oatly, which most people would probably know, and they just produce oat milk, and it's a very saturated market with loads of people producing oat milk, but they've completely transcended the product by having such a strong brand, that their copywriting is so irreverent, and the packaging is really kind of unique, and it kind of like they even coined, I think, the term wackaging, which is well, people coined it about them, because it's when your packaging starts talking to you and is actually like talking to you like you're a real person, and has a tone of voice and everything, and it means that they just completely stood out in the market, and they have a great product, but also the brand is so strong that they've created something very powerful.
It's to the point where in the coffee shop where I get my coffee every morning, I'm happy that they use Oatly milk. I don't know why, but it feels like they're like me. They use this kind of milk. I don't know.
Well, they're succeeding there.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, that's true.
Well, that's
cool.
it. They've created the feeling for you, and that strong branding.
Yeah. So if that's okay,
so yes, I would like to move to other questions that you planned.
Yeah.
I would like just to remind everyone on the chat, giving us questions about the different topics that we're going to have here, so we can dig deeper into something that you're actually interested in. So, and that will help the content to be more personalized for you. So please, whenever you feel something like, okay, what does it mean that? Well, throw a question and we'll handle it.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask the team in front of me in the studio if they can put the testimonial of Veriff as an overlay. And so I would like to maybe understand your methodology on brand and then on like digital or making the website for this like specific case of Veriff.
Did we introduce Veriff? Yeah.
Maybe it's a good opportunity to talk about them also from the brand perspective. So they do identity verification, and I'm sure Rog will do a better job at nailing exactly their positioning for me. But my understanding is that their goal is to enable identity verification for everyone. So they have this like they've coined this concept of identity 3.0, and so it's so as I said, it's an Estonian unicorn. So it's really like what I would call a scale up that wanted to use their branding as a way to support their messaging and their positioning. So this is like a tweet they've done when they released their new branding, saying that they're super happy to have worked on it with How&How. So I'm very interested in like if we can unpack the work on brand and then on digital with you, Rog. It would be great to see like how you'll be able to work with them on it.
Great.
So maybe we start with the strategy part. So on the research and like nailing the core brand pitch or story.
Yeah, absolutely. Veriff represented a real typical case of what we find when companies come to us, and they've done very well so far, kind of selling the product. They have a great product which is working well. And the brand was built just on the story of the product, and it was selling the features, selling the benefits of the product itself, and they were hitting the size where they needed to really evolve as a brand and have a brand which transcended the product and moved into a more kind of narrative based brand. And in the research that we did with them, and when we first started the project, we were like, oh, it's a ID verification software. It's kind of like interesting, but like not, hugely exciting. There's some projects that come along where you're like, well, the product is just like so amazing. And the more we did the research with them, we realized that the way the product works, it is actually, really, really incredible. But beyond this, they had a very, very strong vision for what they wanted the software to eventually be able to do. And their kind of wider mission was to make the ID verification process so streamlined and so efficient that not only banks would actually start using it for verifying customers, because that's the biggest application. It's, you set up your Wise account or whatever, and you do your ID verification, and it knows who you are. So it's an anti-fraud kind of measure. But yeah, they wanted to make it cheap enough that a lot more organizations would consider using it. Like, for example, a dating app, to set up my profile on a dating app. If I did an ID verification, it would eliminate a lot of the problems that dating apps have with, people, bad actors, trying to, like the Tinder swindler that was on recently did the ones on Netflix, it actually prevent things like that from happening. So there's wider mission of actually making a lot of the internet and internet kind of interactions we have with people, safer and more trusted. And so that vision was really, really powerful. So that was the story that we really kind of used as the basis of the brand. And that they were kind of creating this trust movement on the web, and it was kind of like fighting for a kind of safer internet, and really like trying to use their software to eliminate bad actors and trolling and things like that. If when you set up a social media account you used an ID verification, then people wouldn't probably speak so badly about each other on social media, because you actually know who you're speaking to, and there'll be accountability there. So yeah, it's a really interesting story to kind of tap into, and also visually, there's some real interesting things to play with the idea of, they were sort of almost challenging the idea of what identity is and what digital identity could be. So this idea of kind of identity 3.0 came out of all of that work, and that feeling of that trust movement combined together to make that compelling story. So yeah, visually, then the identity 3.0 concept, we used this idea of the holographic image that you get on a lot of documents like this one, to then kind of bring that into the digital domain to say, okay, what's the level deeper than that? And so we used the idea of that holographic system to create the color system. And then in the copywriting, you'll see it's all very like powerful, and it's this movement that is feeling like they're kind of trying to bring everyone along with them. They're actually challenging kind of government level people and companies to actually bring more accountability online. So there's a ton of really interesting kind of concepts that we could like leverage, and that was just a result of doing the research part, which you never know what you're going to discover at that stage, and sometimes there's some really, really interesting and exciting things that you can use as inspiration.
So I have like one thing I would like to understand. So they came to you and they were like, okay, look, we have this problem that we want to solve. Well, people don't feel that they can use our technology, or not, that it's not spreading widely enough, or how did it start? Like, did they come with a problem, or did they come like, okay, we need to work on the brand?
Yeah, the main problem they came to us is that they knew that their existing brand was not really living up to the kind of size and valuation that they were achieving as a company, and they knew that the old brand was going to be hampering their growth, and it just wasn't a great quality brand. It didn't have that story. It didn't have that depth to it. They had illustrations which were kind of done in a way which was kind of, we find with companies as they grow, they might borrow things from here and there, take a library here and take some icons from here, and then it starts to really lose consistency, and that was the problem that they had. And they also knew that they had this kind of vision, and they weren't sure how that they could bring that into the brand, and make it part of the story, but not alienate the existing customers the customer base that they
Of
had.
course, there is that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But like, was it more of the problem of like it seemed like complex technology or like very advanced technology that is maybe not accessible for the others? Was it intimidating? Was it like, okay, well, it feels like I cannot profit from that because it's too expensive or too advanced?
No, not so much. It's more. I mean, the product side, they were doing a pretty good job of like describing how it worked, but I guess it was opening up the idea of what it could be to a much wider audience than just the financial world. So in doing that, we in the research phase, we kind of look to the internal side and the kind of almost soul seeking of an organization and what their vision is and everything. But as important as that is, the real importance is also really understanding the customer or the new customer that they'd like to reach. So defining customer personas is a really important part of the research as well, because they're the kind of hero of our brand story. So we've got to make sure that all of the core customer personas who we're targeting, that we've taken them into consideration for the brand, because the brand needs to speak to all of them, and then the messaging can be used to speak to them individually and in different appropriate parts of the website and things like that. So that's a really important piece of the puzzle to understand and define. And then the third part of the research is really looking at the competitive set as well and saying, okay, well, who else is out there? What do they look like? What are they talking about? How are they communicating? And then you can really start to see where the power comes that Veriff has that no one else does. So that whole exercise is all about trying to uncover the core truths of the company, which are powerful. So sometimes we call that like the sources of power that we have at our disposal. And then on the other side, you're looking at, why are they relevant? Why should customers care? And that kind of core truth plus that relevance together, that's the ingredients for making a really great brand dialogue, and really, the brand sits in between those two sides.
I love that. I love that. So yeah. So sometimes we go onto one or the other. Like we might look too much on at our forces, but we don't see how can they be relevant for the others. And then we talk a lot about what we have. This is what we have. This is our force, but we don't kind of shape it in a way that is relevant for people. Or sometimes we look a lot at what people want, but we don't connect them to what forces we have. I like, that's the combination of two.
Super interesting.
As an agency, we're sort of often the translator between, the client or the company and their customers. But we're more on the customer side. We're like the ambassador for the customer to then uncover what is relevant, because companies often try and do their own rebrand work, but they're almost like too close to that, because they can see all of this power and they're trying to communicate that, and they're actually not thinking about it from the other side, the other side of the window, which is where we stand.
Yeah, we are on a similar exercise, so we know about that.
Super cool. Okay, so doing the research both on like what's unique about the company from the internal, but also how it's perceived by their ideal customers and those that they would like to get, and from that extracting a simple like core kind of positioning. And in that case for Veriff, it was this kind of layer of identity that you can simply add to not only financial institutions processes, but also dating apps, gaming platforms, anything that could benefit from less fraud. So that's super cool. And how did that evolve? Like once you defined that, how did that evolve into a website in the end?
Yeah, so the branding process that we go through, once we've defined the strategy, and the strategy comprises of a few pieces. You have the positioning, which is kind of the place that you want to occupy in the consumer's mind. You have the purpose, and for these guys, the purpose was very strong, which was making the internet a safer place.
Yeah.
And then you have the personality as well, and the personality is where that kind of trust movement, that kind of that force for good, like comes in. It's like almost like crime fighters of the web. and that all gets rolled up into the simple kind of core brand idea, which tries to express all of that in a simple concept. So we had the Identity 3.0 that then was the jumping off point for the designers to create the visual identity and the verbal identity system. And in order to do that, usually we would develop out, the designers would start working at this point because they have their brief, you know, what's the feeling we're trying to convey, what are the practical things we're trying to convey. But there's always multiple ways of expressing a simple idea like that. So what we do is we develop out multiple different options at that stage, where we say we take the concept, we develop out 3 distinct, completely different brand systems which use different ways of expressing that idea. So one of the routes was very illustrative, for example. Then there was the route that was taken forward, which uses all of those overlays and patterns. And then we had another route which was much more technical and had some more sage, we call it, more like wisdom kind of built into the system. And so then we present those routes, and the client will then choose one of those routes with, you know, some modifications from things that have come from other places. And that process allows us to be very experimental, very kind of like have one option where we really push the boundaries and, you know, be very expressive, and one that maybe we leverage something else, some other core part of the strategy. And that experimentation allows us to really push the boundaries creatively. And it also allows for lots of collaboration as well, because we're not just presenting a final option. It's like, here's lots of different options that you can visualize how if we would go in this direction. And then we choose that, and then we finalize the brand out into the brand guideline system. So we go like ultra creative, you know, set that brand up and express it in lots of different ways, in brand worlds, we call them, where we're doing layouts and we're actually putting it on billboards and digitally, and really flexing the brand to put it in lots of different applications. And then once that route is chosen, then we systematize it all, and we break down all of those brand elements, you know, the color system, the font system, the graphic you know, pattern system that we had for them. And that's when we put it all into the guidelines and set all the rules in place of what you can and can't do with all of the design elements to keep that consistency.
Cool. And once you have that, this is the moment where you start working on the website, because now you have your brand guide or guidelines, and a website is just one result of that. That is maybe the most noticeable, or like the tool that has the biggest impact, specifically for like SaaS companies and tools. So just on that website, I would be interested in knowing like how these brand guidelines evolved into website sections, and like also like a website kind of system that you deliver as well for the company.
Yeah, exactly. We start playing with the digital layouts of the brand quite early on in that early brand exploration, and that's to make sure that we know that the brand system will work digitally. We bring our digital designers into that process quite early on to make sure things like the color system are going to work digitally. You know, there's nothing worse than having a brand color which is really difficult to work with on the web, for example, or even the graphic elements that we're creating, making sure that that's not going to lead to huge file sizes and make the site slow to use. And we take the brand guidelines, and the digital designers then will convert it into a digital design system. And the method for doing that is they will start by designing a page, and as they start using the brand digitally, then those rules will also start to become clear, like the button styling, you know, the different icons and things like that. And they will, at the same time as designing the site, they will systematize it all into a cascading digital design system, which we can have a little look at the example for Veriff of what that looks like. But it's essentially creating the kind of digital guidelines for the brand, really, which lives in Figma, like all digital design does these days. Are you guys seeing this? My share screen, great. So in the digital design system, we've first set up the site maps. That's the architecture of the site, which we like to keep in the same file, so we know which pages we've got to still create. Then we move that to a wireframe stage, and in the wireframes, this can be done pre-brand work as well. So the digital designers can actually work on the wireframes before the brand is fully fledged and fully realized, because there's no design; it's just layouts. And then we go into the designs. So it's just taking a moment to load. And in the design stage, we're designing full pages, but because we know that we're going to build it into Figma, we're designing those pages in a very modular way. And as we design the pages, we're simultaneously building up the UI kit, which I can show you in a second, but also building up the component library. So you'll see each of these. This is one component, this is another component. So it's simultaneously designing the overall site whilst breaking it down into those component level pieces, but then also the kind of UI kit level pieces as well. So
That's
the UI
great.
kit here, you'll see is all the kind of guidelines for huge headers, all of the spacing guides of the grids, of the different breakpoints, even the spacings around images and between sections. And this all cascades into the main system as well. So if I change one of these brand colors, then it will cascade through to the rest of the system, to the rest of the designs. And then on the atom level, this is all of the actual UI elements. So the the links, the button styles. Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, sorry. I just said yeah.
Cool. And yeah, you'll see all play buttons, and this one's a very sophisticated, large design system because the site itself is pretty big. So we've kind of covered all bases here. All the filtration for the blogs and all of that stuff. And then because we work a lot with digital product-based companies, then this also forms the basis for the product design team reskinning reskinning the actual product as well. So we can really align with the product teams and the product designers to make sure that it's nothing worse than like having a great marketing website and then you log into the product and it all looks different, and that's from a brand perspective, that's a real no-no. So that's a very important consideration. And then also we have the component library level, which is all of the actual components and their variants all stored within a library, so that we can kind of we're at the same time designing the components and designing the flexibility that we need within each component to kind of have a very rich component library, but not have more components than we actually need to make sure that everything is actually going to be used. And when the content creators are building pages and new pages, that they're really clear on what components do and what they're going to look like as well.
Really cool. So you go from, while you're defining the brand, you're already defining the website structure, you already can start working on the wireframes, and then these two come together when you actually start designing pages. You start creating also your system, like your digital system with all the components, so that you don't only deliver a website, you deliver like a system to be able to iterate on this website, but always keeping it on brand.
It means that the sites that we're creating, especially for companies who are in this stage where they're scaling, and they're still scaling very fast, so they want to have a website that they've invested into, which is going to also have the longevity that they would hope to have in the brand as well, so that then when they create a new section, so for example, we did the website for Hotjar recently. We just built them the careers page out of some existing components and then some extra components that we didn't have in the library. So the older the website gets, the more flexible it becomes, and it's almost like the older it gets, the kind of richer and better it becomes, as opposed to the other way around with a monolithic site. Often the older it gets, the more kind of fragmented it becomes and more messy and difficult to use.
That's awesome. That's super cool. And I'm guessing it's also part of your offer to them, not only giving them a system for now, but actually providing a way to get a better, more effective, more efficient brand now, but that will also keep being very efficient and grow over time. So that's super cool. That's nice. Awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. It's an evolving beast because the companies of this kind, they're changing so quickly that they need the tools to be able to have something which is going to change at the same rate without having to, go through a huge rebuild exercise.
Awesome. And I'm guessing the answer is yes, but just checking, like these website sections, in the end, they become, like here in that case of Veriff, slices that they assemble to compose pages. So this goes also to the marketing team as website sections they assemble.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So yeah, we designed the first, like all the first pages, and the core pages, the core kind of sales pages. But it means once these are constructed, then and live, then the marketing team might say, oh, actually, we prefer to put this section below this section. So when they jump into Prismic, they just reorder it and save it, and it's done. So it makes it really practical. And then they might say, okay, on the home page, we've added a new feature, so let's insert, some other component which communicates another new product or something like that we have. So they have all the tools to do that, and it's usually only if there's a new kind of section. For example, I don't know if they didn't have a plans page, or as I mentioned before, they wanted to add a careers section. That's when they may need some extra components to do that. But it means that they're just commissioning a few extra components rather than, a really big
whole
piece
new
of
pages.
design work.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's far from just delivering a PowerPoint that or slides that will talk about the brand, which is an important work already on its own, but you go really far in the process to give them tools to keep publishing, updating pages, and as you said, the older they get, the more options they have, the richer it becomes, right? And I really love something about this, because when we are, like, as Prismic, we're doing a product, right? And we want to be relevant. And the thing that we really work a lot on is that we want to be an extension of your already existing processes. And you, as a very successful agency, you have a lot of processes that you put in place. And I see how you break things into elements, and then you put these sections, and that's part of your process. And then Prismic is kind of extending to that so that you make them runnable, right? It's at the run time, you take these sections and start playing them, and they have their existence, not in the design only part, but also in the runtime. They have an existence, and I see it myself as a success for us, for like as a product, to be able to become an extension of your own habits and the habits and the processes of a successful agency like yours.
Awesome. Cool. And I just want to say something. This is all great content. Like for me, working on brand, it's very, very, very relevant and very interesting. So I want to tell people in the stream to don't forget to like the video, because it helps us get this content to more people like them. So that more marketing people will see this content. I know that our channel is very developer oriented, but I'm sure this will be helpful to actually not only marketing people, because I'm sure Samuel, who's in my team and working on the website, he's actually working on transforming a Figma file into like a system for us to grow the brand. So any marketing person or creative developer, this is super interesting content for them.
It's interesting because sometimes we have had content creators actually request that we use something like Prismic for the CMS, because it's as valuable for them. They're the people who are going to be looking after the site as it moves forward. The developer part is just the initial project.
Exactly.
But actually, the content creators are the ones who've got to work in it day in, day out, and they're just as relevant to kind of look after, really.
And the developers are here to add the block of performance many times and like creating the brand system. But those who will actually give it power and leverage it over time, this is the content team. So that's also sending some love to my content team doing that. Cool.
So I have can I take a question from the chat?
Yeah, we're way over time, but maybe 5 more minutes, if that's okay for you, Rug.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So let me choose. Given a company that has both online and offline assets to update, following the rebranding, would you recommend to revise everything at the same time, or start with online and then follow with offline, or any other strategies?
100%, everything needs to be done at the same time. It's really, really important that when you go through a rebrand exercise, that when you launch that brand, it is a new incarnation of the brand. You can't have two brands existing at the same time for the same company. It's a big brand no-no, because if someone accesses the website and then they have some physical kind of material, if the rebrand has been a big transformation and those things are very different, it's very confusing for the consumer. They might even think that it's a different company altogether. So yeah, very important to do everything at the same time.
Cool. And just I wanted to also spend some time on closing thoughts and asking you, how can people reach you, and why? How can they help you? Maybe also yourself. So if you're looking to, I don't know, hire or work with a certain types of companies, that's a great moment to mention it.
Okay, let me change the question a little bit. So that's one part of the question.
Okay.
But if you are choosing an agency for rebranding, what are to you, if you were today, you are a company and you want to choose an agency, what are the most important things that you should be careful about when choosing an agency? And then it follows naturally with the question of know-how. How about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I was a marketing person looking for a branding agency, the things I'd be looking out for would be a diversity in their portfolio of work, showing that they don't have a set specific style, because the style that they adopt needs to tailor to the strategy that they come up with. And so if you see someone who's very similar work, then if you feel like that's going to be appropriate for you, then maybe that's appropriate. But that's a very difficult thing to make the call on before you actually do the strategy work. So the strategy should always define the creative. And so a good branding agency will have all kinds of different sorts of work, illustration-based brands, or geometric-based brands, or lots of different variety. I'd also be looking for a really clear process, and a company who will be doing the research side and the strategy side. It's the absolute foundation of brand work, and it needs to be given the time. If a company is saying they're going to just jump straight in and do some design work, or even do some design work in a pitch, that's a thing to really be careful of, because that means that they're not actually thinking about brand in the kind of correct, rigorous way that you should. So there's a few things. And then also in the team, you're kind of looking for a company that would have specialist branding designers. General designers work on lots of different things. People who work in brand and have that experience of brand, it's actually quite a specialist kind of niche of design, and you're looking for that specialism in their designers too.
Awesome.
Now for the second question.
How can people reach out to you, and what would you like them to reach out to you for?
Yeah, sure. So we can be found at how.studio, very, very simple URL.
Yes.
And you can find all of our work there and our case studies, and it's very easy to contact us there. If anyone wants to chat to me personally, then LinkedIn is my place where I do that. So you can find me. Again, very easy to find me. It's just Rog, R-O-G, H-O-W. So I've got a very very efficient name, and I'm the only person on LinkedIn with that name. So just punch that into LinkedIn and connect with me and ask me any questions that you might have. Awesome.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time and for sharing so much. This was very interesting and very insightful.
No,
thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Bye, Raj.
See you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Cool. It was great, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I still have many questions that I tried to be not to ask everything I have.
Okay, so stay with us. This second part will be very much for maybe the more technical of you and those building the websites. We'll have Lucie join us to give a live demo of the two new features we have for developers, SliceMachine, on SliceMachine, sorry. So TypeScript support and sync changes, and then we'll just to conclude a fun part, have Angelo and Alex recap or live, I don't know how to say, explorers of the Next.js Conf. Lucie is replacing me, yes.
Okay, and now Suddenly there is a transformation that's happening. Next time you'll see Lucie. Meanwhile, let's look at this.
There's a question on the chat.
Is there a question on this? I don't see one.
Prismic is a really strong brand.
All right.
I don't actually. I didn't receive it yet. There you are. So you have a few things. Okay, so. Oh yeah. So there is a question. That's right. It was earlier there. So remember who asked this question. That will be quick. Teo, right? As the question, Prismic is really a strong brand. Will this impact existing paying customers? So how will it impact existing paying customers? Let me see. Like Prismic is starting to have, do you think that it's about Prismic starting to have a strong brand, and will it impact the existing customers, like in what? In how much we charge them? Probably, yeah. So I think that having a strong brand is like we have a better understanding of who we are and what we want to deliver mostly. And so I don't think that they are correlated. Like I don't think that because we have a strong brand we are going to kind of charge more for our service. It's more like we're understanding, okay, what the unique value that we bring, and we want to communicate about it more clearly. So I think this is what's important for us. I'm very happy to answer this question. I would like to so our mission, what we want to do is to make website building and website publishing available for all kinds of companies. So this is important for us. So I don't think that is part of our plans is to make it only accessible for the ones that pay more. So we'll always have plans for everyone. Now, of course, the bigger your teams, the more stuff you need from us, then we'll charge you more, and this is how the world works, right? But we want always to be careful about offering Prismic for everyone. That's important for us. We don't see ourselves like only targeting a certain layer or certain clients. So rest reassured, this is not going to impact in any way. They're not exactly correlated. So Lucie, there you are.
Yes, well, hi everyone, and well, I'm really happy to be here. And the reason I came here today is that I'd like to show you a few of the latest updates we released on SliceMachine. So there's two of them, and well, let's talk about the first one, which is automatic type generations. So
let me give you a quick reminder of SliceMachine. What is it? It's the developer tool. So Prismic has two parts. There's the part that we call SliceMachine because we like to come up with maybe strange names, I can call it. There's anyway, it's a place where why we call it SliceMachine, because it's a place where developers will slice basically the website into reusable sections. That's why we call it SliceMachine. So developers will see the designs like, okay, this is a section, this is a section, this is a section, develop these sections and push it to the content marketing team so that they can build pages. Now we're talking about the developer tool, SliceMachine, and then you said you have two updates.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the first one is automatic TypeScript type generation. And basically, it's a new feature on SliceMachine that allows us, whenever you create a slice, for example, let's say like dual image slice, whenever you create a slice within SliceMachine now, we will generate for you a bunch of types to allow you to get type intelligence on your new slice, and anything Prismic content related you might be manipulating within your code. So this is all the code and types that SliceMachine has generated for me with all the document and slices that I have on my project. And right now I just created a dual image slice, which I can be able to find it here. I have dual image. And if I pick inside my index.js, we can see that it also added like a bunch of JavaScript documentation that allows us to just bring in the types inside your slices for you automatically, that you can enjoy IntelliSense on your content out of the box without doing anything, without knowing anything about TypeScript. So for example, here, if I go back inside some code and I access my slice object, and inside it I can see that it suggests me a lot of properties, and for sure it suggests me the description that is part of my slice model for now. But if I want to add, for example, another field, let's say I add an image, so I call it image. I save that field, and now if I go back to my code, the types has been generated again. And so now, if I, instead of having description, it should now suggest me to get images. Yes, you can see images now available. So it knows that I have now 3 fields inside my slice, and it suggests them to me so that I can use them within my code and, just develop faster and be more confident about what kind of field I have available with my slice. So
that's really useful, because sometimes you have a lot of back and forth. It's like, what was it that I called this field? And then you have to do search and all in the code. And we asked, our customers, like, what is it that they use? And it seems a lot of the developers, they use TypeScript. And it was like, okay, well, then we need to do something about it, right?
Exactly. So right now I was in a JavaScript file, and this is great because it works for JavaScript, but of course it's TypeScript and it works with TypeScript. So if I were to create an index.tsx, which would be the equivalent of that React component, but in TypeScript, and now if I pick it like a slice k-fold quickly, here I have my slice component props, but if I want to, I can type it furthermore by providing it my slice type. So to do so, I just go here, provide it a generic, and to do so, I just call in content, which is provided by us, and this is where you access all the types that we generate for you. And inside it, for sure, I can be able to find dual image slice. And now within my slice, thanks to that, I can go ahead and code. And if I exit slice, I have like primary, and again, I'm able to find all my field available in my slice inside a TypeScript slice.
Yeah, I love that. And especially like if I look at the whole workflow of building slices and websites. Basically here what you're doing is like defining, okay, well, for that part, for that section, for that slice, I need these fields, I need the image, all of that. You define it, and you move to your actually code, and then you have them available. And what we wanted to work on is the productivity of getting already content and data already available for you, because we think that there's already a lot of work of styling and animation and all that, a lot of fun work to be done. So maybe we can take care of getting data quickly into the page so that you can start the interesting, the fun work, right?
Yeah, exactly. And talking about starting the fun work more quickly, that's a nice segue to this second feature I'd like to show you today. So, let's say I'm done with my slice. So what's left for me to do? Let's say I want this slice to be usable inside the article custom type. So I add it to my article custom type, and now I have this. No, I didn't add it. Here we go. Save. And now if I save my custom type device system, you can see that like I changed multiple things within my SliceMachine project. And you can also see that a new tab is available in SliceMachine, and it's the changes tab. And within the changes tab, you can see like the work in progress that you've made, like the progress you've made since your last push to Prismic. You can see that I updated my article. You can see that I made an update to the contact form earlier on, and that I created the dual image slice. And now you can push all of that at once by just clicking push change within the changes tab. And this will work out and push your slices and article to Prismic. As you can see, it's disappearing as I'm pushing everything. And now that everything is pushed and available on Prismic, I'm able to use that on my Prismic repository. So yes, if I have my article here, we should be able to see my dual image somewhere here. Yes, dual image. And that's it. So you can now push all your progress to Prismic at once by just adding to the changes tab within SliceMachine.
So that will show what's different between you and what's there, and then you can push them all together.
Exactly.
So the process is like you change a few things, you test, or you say, I'm happy about that, I want to push it either to Prismic or maybe like to production, or is it to the development environment? How would you do that? Do you push it directly to production in that case?
Yes, well, for now we push everything to production, so it's like we are working on GitHub on the master branch, and we're just pushing to the master branch. Well, I don't want to spoil the future,
but it's it's like some okay, yes, I understand. So the thing is, then it's also like if you open another branch, you can open another branch and see the changes, compare them, and choose to push them as well, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so that's something that we want to think about.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So well, that's the first step toward that, and well, we keep working.
I guess I know too much. Okay.
But yeah, so well, that was the few updates we wanted to show you today about SliceMachine, and I guess we can head to San Francisco to hear more about Next.js Conf.
Let's see what happened there. Okay, so
well, suspense.
We were just at Next.js Conf 2022. We just had a fantastic time. Angelo, how did you like the conference?
Oh, I loved it. It was the first conference actually that I've been to, and very impressive. The standards are very high now for any conference I go to in the future.
We're heading to the after party in a little bit, but we wanted to fill you in on what we learned today, because we did learn a lot. We got some previews about things beforehand, right? Like we had known, or at least got hints about certain things. So they put out like an RFC for this new layouts API, but there were some new surprises, and we're pretty excited to tell everybody about them. So first off, what was like the biggest thing that kind of like either surprised you or caught you off guard, or just was, I don't know, that you found interesting?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting Next 13 to come out today, which of course it did.
Yeah.
But I think one of the larger announcements that people weren't expecting was TurboPack.
And what is TurboPack?
So TurboPack is basically a replacement for Webpack, which I imagine most of us know what Webpack is, but for those who don't, it's basically a way to bundle all of your application's files, like the JavaScript files and your fonts and images and so on. And so you need something to bundle that all together into a single app. And so TurboPack will do that now much, much quicker.
What else has come out with this new Next 13? Like what are the other features that we've got coming?
Probably the other biggest change that you would see is the new Layouts API. So the Vercel team actually published an RFC, I think it was a few months ago actually. Yeah. So many people already are familiar with the Layouts API, but now you can actually try it out and implement it in your apps with Next 13. The Layouts API is a pretty big change in the way you would write your applications in Next. Whereas in the past you would use your pages folder and you'd have a file for each page on your site. Whereas now you'll have an app folder instead. And within that you'll have things like your layout file, your error files. You can have nested components within there. You can co-locate all of your components and styles with your pages. Just a lot of nice improvements there.
You can do like data fetching all throughout your app rather than just in like at the page level, right?
Exactly. So if your layout needs the navigation document, for example, you can request it there once rather than in all of the pages. So it's a lot cleaner way to do it.
Yeah, I think for Prismic users, that's going to be like one of the bigger changes of like not having to request the data on your page for everything that you need and then pass it around all the different ways, and like you can request that data at a navigation layer in your layout, and then every step of the way down the line.
So actually this new API is backwards compatible with the Pages API. So you don't have to upgrade everything to your app folder just by changing to Next 13.
Cool.
You can keep your Pages files there, and then one by one you can move them over to the app folder. So that should make it nice and easy to upgrade when you have time to.
Or even if I have like some pages that require this new kind of a layout architecture, and others that are just a bit more simple where I don't really mind if it's in the old now way of fetching data and then building pages in Next.js, right?
That's true. Yeah, if you like the way the Pages API works today, then you're welcome to stay on that as well.
So I think a lot of the hype now is going to be around Turbo Repo. A lot of it was around the layouts. Our RFC, the new Layouts API. One thing that I didn't really expect, but I am actually really excited about, is stuff around images, around fonts. Just there's like little nitty-gritty things that you know aren't as flashy with big headlines, but make such a big difference in the developer experience and in like the performance of my end site. What can you tell us about what we saw in terms of new features around those things?
Yeah, so they announced a few different asset management things. The probably the most common thing is going to be next image. So back in Next 12 dot something, they released something called Next Future Image.
Right.
Now it's basically like an exploration into a new API for image management with Next Image. And now in Next 13, that is just what Next Image is. Like it's replaced the old version. Basically, it's done a lot of improvements in terms of core web vitals, making it simpler to style, for example. Like there's no more wrapper divs.
Thank you. That, like, if you've used Next Image and you've like fought with like why is it an element within an element within an element? Yeah. It's how they had to do it. I get it, but in terms of like compared to styling just a regular image, it was a lot of fussing around with like position absolute, position relative, and widths, and it just wasn't as fun. I don't know.
Yeah, and the way they've been able to do this is that the platform itself has just improved since Next Image came out. So things like lazy loading just based in the browser is available now. So thanks to developments in the browser, we can just make Next Image simpler.
Cool. There's something around fonts too, right?
That's right. So the next asset management thing they introduced was Next Fonts, which is a brand new API. We haven't had time to dig into like what that actually feels like and looks like, right. But from what I understand, things like Google Fonts, you'll no longer have to install them manually. They're just available at next/fonts, and you can import whatever font name you want. And then you just instantiate it and then pass it as a class name. They do have features built in where you can use your own fonts as well. So if you have like paid fonts, or maybe you have your own custom font, that'll work through that as well.
And then one thing that I think is kind of an underrated part of the web, but like has been gaining popularity with features like with services like Imagix and Cloudinary and everything, is creating dynamic OG images, so that like if you have a blog post, you don't have to go into Figma or Photoshop or whatever and create a new image for each blog post, but there's an API that just builds on the fly. Next.js, or I guess Vercel, recently announced a feature around this, right?
That's right. So it's called Vercel/OG. That's the package name. But basically, it allows you to write HTML, and you'll get out an image as your that you can use for like social cards or like your Open Graph metadata. What's different about this approach compared to what you could do in the past was, one, you could use services like Imagix or Cloudinary, and you could pass long like URL parameters to generate your image on their servers. But you're fairly limited in what you can actually do. Whereas with HTML, you have the full power of HTML and CSS and everything like that.
So, Angelo, you and Lucie are the open source team at Prismic. What do you see as like kind of the work ahead for you in the coming weeks and months as you try to make it so that our Prismic users can leverage these new features as easily as possible?
So first, we'll try out Next 13. After that, maybe we'll look at trying it out in our starters. So like, how does it integrate into a Prismic project that works as a blog or like a marketing site? And then from that, we can see, are there any improvements we can make that build on top of these Next 13 features? One example is maybe Next Image. Like maybe we can take advantage of the new simpler component in our Prismic Next Image component that we provide. That will require some testing on our end, but something we're excited for, I think, to just leverage these new features that Vercel announced today.
Awesome. I'm excited to see what we learn. I'm excited to try this out. There's a whole lot to get into, and I'm excited to see Turbo Repo and these other features come out of alpha, maybe go into beta, maybe go into full production release. And yeah, just Next.js is really, really becoming more and more kind of like a de facto way to build with the web.
Yeah, it was great.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Nice. It was a few nice news from the next conference, especially the layout. When I really like it, it's like very aligned with what we want also to kind of offer with Prismic, and it's very aligned of how we are progressing with Prismic together with Next. I love it, and it's great to see that we're progressing in the same kind of direction.
Yes, the layout is definitely like one of the features that I guess most Prismic users would be looking forward to. But yeah, if you'd like this video and you'd like to hear more about Next.js, like we're preparing a lot of after conference content for you, so you should definitely like subscribe to our channel and stay tuned, because there will be more content like this and in-depth videos about Next.js and what has been released as part of Next.js Conf 2022.
Yeah, we invest a lot and to try to bring this knowledge to you guys so that you know what the most important updates that happen in the community, so you're up to date and you can do a better job, right? So I guess with that, probably that's it, right?
Yeah.
So thank you very much for being around. It was a very interesting one. We talked about branding, we had updates about Next and all of that, and the next one is going to be in the 30th of November. So always the last Wednesday of November. It's going to be the 30th. So see you there. Let's see what Nuha will cook for us as a topic for that day. Look forward for the email and see you there.
Cheers.